do want to talk more about this with retired LAPD Police Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey. Cheryl, the police department says Betty Jones was accidentally killed. Now, just to put it in perspective, police were responding to a call from the family saying that they were dealing with an emotionally disturbed young man who was apparently threatening the father with an aluminum bat. How do police respond when they're going into a situation like this where there is somebody who's got what is easily a dangerous instrument?
Well, what we would hope is that the officers had a plan before they arrived on scene. And I believe that poor tactics and a lack of planning often leads to these kinds of deadly force incidents. They understood that they were responding to a radio call of a man with a bat. Where was the taser? Why didn't they deploy a taser? And if they didn't have one on scene, they should have had one with an officer who was responding as backup. What was the urgency? There was no exigent circumstance that the officers could not have waited until a taser arrived on scene. And so we hear over and over that these kinds of accidents happen, but they only happen in our neighborhoods. These mistakes don't occur in affluent neighborhoods. And until police chiefs and commissioners try to quit convincing us of things that we see as accidental, we're going to continue to have these things occur. We need accountability. That's what we need.
So what does need to change in Chicago? Does there need to be different layers of policing put in place so that pulling the trigger is not the first recourse?
Well, you know, the problem is systemic and it's cultural, and it's not independent of just Chicago. This is what we see on a national level. And so unless there's accountability when officers violate policy and procedure and law, unless there's accountability when you use deadly force as a first resort and not a last resort as we're taught, then officers will continue to do this, because if we don't do anything to deter bad behavior, then we don't change bad behavior.
And so as a police officer, and I'm sure you've seen situations where police have been put on administrative duty, which in the case of this officer, he has been put in administrative duty for 30 days. How does the investigation play out?
Well, what happens is right now, I believe, is that that police department is circling the wagons. And so they place him on administrative duty, and that's a gift. And then they craft a story to try to create a reason for this force, this deadly force, that should have never occurred. And then because we have a short memory as a public, when this thing is when there's another incident of a greater magnitude, we'll forget about this and move on. And so then that'll be that. They'll tell us that he was reasonably fearful and he saw this or he saw that, and then we'll move on to the next thing. But we know that that was unreasonable. A bat is certainly can cause damage, but is not a deadly force. And deadly force should have been used as a last resort and not a first resort. So.
Well, it's so interesting also because it was the family that called the police department asking for help with this emotionally disturbed young man, a Northern Illinois University student. They were hoping perhaps the police could calm the situation or bring it back under control. And this woman, a friend of theirs, was asked to open the door when police arrived. And just a tragedy all around, and clearly one that will have a thorough investigation with it. Cheryl Dorsey, thank you. We appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
And